You've seen the lists. The travel blogs, the news reports. They tell you about high crime rates, they give you the numbers, the predictable warnings about where you shouldn't leave your wallet unattended. They talk about high crime statistics, they mention the homicide rate, and they wave a gentle hand at political instability before advising you to take a taxi instead of the subway. But what if the most dangerous cities aren't the ones you can still visit and leave a bad review? What if the true danger, the one that will absolutely ruin you, that will absorb your savings, your sense of safety, and your hope, is in the places where the system has fully collapsed, where the infrastructure of escape itself has been dismantled? I'm not talking about pickpockets. I'm talking about the permanent, bone-deep danger of places where the statistics are so grim the local government stopped counting, where your passport is just a piece of paper, and the rules of modern civilization simply do not apply anymore. We dug into the global crime data, the political security reports, the economic forecasts, and the chilling testimony of those who barely escaped to uncover the 7 absolute worst places to try to build a life right now. This is not a travel warning. This is a terrifying autopsy of social failure, an investigation into cities that look normal on a map but are hollowed out from the inside. We are pulling back the curtain on the hidden dangers, the systemic traps, and the forces that, once they have a hold of you, truly won't let you go. This is Don't Move Here, the 7 most dangerous cities you can't leave alive. Stay with me until number 1 because it's the only city where escaping is statistically more dangerous than the terrifying prospect of remaining. Let us start with number 7, because the collapse here is subtle, but total. Number 7. Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. You look at Port Moresby on a map and see a capital city, a port, a hub of the Pacific. You might see images of the National Parliament building, maybe some pristine coastal views. You wouldn't see the rascal gangs. The word rascal itself means rogue or rascal, and that casual name belies the reality that these groups, born from high unemployment and massive social inequality, effectively run the streets here. The Global Crime Index consistently ranks Port Moresby among the top 5 most dangerous cities on the planet. But it's not the raw number of muggings or break-ins that makes this place unlivable, it's the pervasive lawlessness. There are parts of the city, known as settlements, where the police do not enter, where the very idea of a functioning legal system is an abstract concept. Imagine buying a home, sinking your life savings into a property, only to realize that your title deed is worth less than the scrap copper on your roof because the authorities who are supposed to enforce property rights are either corrupt, overwhelmed, or too scared to respond. The true danger here is the shadow state, a parallel system where protection is paid for in cash or kind, and violence is the only effective contract. The wealthy live behind high concrete walls and barbed wire, moving between secure compounds in armored cars. If you are not wealthy, if you are a prospective middle-class migrant seeking opportunity, you are simply a target. The local economy is suffocated by crime. Businesses refuse to expand beyond secure bubbles, which means the job creation that could lift people out of the criminal life simply never arrives. You can't leave because, for many, the cost of escaping the shadow state is greater than the cost of a plane ticket. It requires selling off assets that nobody can buy, giving up legal standing that doesn't exist, and walking away from a community where the only security is mutual fear. The danger is baked into the very foundation of the city. Would you put your family's future in a city where the law and the government are merely suggestions for the people who can't afford to pay their way out? Number 6. Memphis, Tennessee, United States. It feels strange to jump continents, to move from a Pacific port city run by gangs to an American city known for blues music and barbecue, but the numbers do not lie, and the systemic rot is just as fatal. Memphis stands out not for its total crime volume, but for its sheer unprecedented rate of domestic collapse. With a murder rate among the highest in the US, often exceeding 48 per 100,000 residents, Memphis is a chilling case study in what happens when the very infrastructure of protection fails in a developed nation. You are told that in a major American city, you have recourse, you have the police, the courts, the hospitals, and a functional economy. But in Memphis, the cracks are widening into chasms. The true danger is the hollowed-out justice system. The police department faces massive staffing shortages. Criminals know the response times are glacial and the chance of a successful prosecution is low. This isn't just about random violence, it is about an environment where the perceived risk of committing a crime has dropped so low that opportunistic violence has become normalized. Imagine buying a house, only to realize that the property tax you pay is funding a system that cannot reliably answer a 911 call. This isn't the failure of a remote, unstable government, this is the failure of a system right next door. Furthermore, the economic decline compounds the problem. As major companies and job opportunities leave the inner city, the desperation remains, creating a cycle where violence is both the cause and the effect of poverty. You can't leave because the falling property values, driven by this same high crime rate, have shackled homeowners to their mortgages. People who bought homes at the peak, hoping to build equity and move up, now find themselves underwater, trapped in a declining neighborhood with no way to sell without taking a devastating loss. Their largest asset, their home, has become their prison. The danger here is financial and existential. Your hard-earned American dream turns into a financial nightmare that prevents your physical relocation. You are stuck in a city that is actively deteriorating around you, and the money you put down on your home is the chain. Would you invest your savings in a city where the primary utility, safety, is permanently offline and the financial exit door is locked? Number 5. San Pedro Sula, Honduras. You drive into San Pedro Sula and the atmosphere is heavy not with humidity, but with an invisible tax, extortion. This city has tragically worn the title of murder capital of the world multiple times, and while raw homicide rates fluctuate, the systemic danger remains. The violence here is industrial, driven by the MS-13 and Barrio 18 gangs. But the most insidious danger, the reason you truly can't leave alive, is the extortion trap. For locals, and anyone trying to establish a business or stable life, the gangs operate an aggressive taxation system called la renta, the rent. Every taxi driver, every street vendor, every store owner, and often every homeowner must pay la renta to the local gang boss. Failure to pay is not met with a court summons, it is met with instant, brutal death. This means your cost of living is artificially and unpredictably inflated, but even worse, it makes true financial stability impossible. You cannot accumulate wealth because your profit margin is negotiated by a criminal with a gun. You cannot expand because expansion only means a higher renter. The danger isn't that you'll be mugged on the street, it's that you'll be murdered for trying to sell a few more vegetables than the gang allows. This total financial capture suffocates the middle class and destroys the ability to generate the capital needed to start over somewhere else. Leaving San Pedro Sula often means abandoning all physical assets, all real estate, all businesses, and often every family member who cannot be immediately secreted away. If you own property, you must leave it behind to be immediately claimed or ransomed by the very criminal elements you are fleeing. The trauma of leaving is compounded by the financial destruction. The city holds you captive by controlling every dollar you earn and every asset you own. It is a financial and physical prison built on fear. The city itself is a high-cost protection racket that offers no protection at all. The city holds you captive by controlling every dollar you earn and every asset you own. It is a financial and physical prison built on fear. The city itself is a high-cost protection racket that offers no protection at all. This raises a crucial point that those glossy travel magazines always miss. Safety is not a luxury, it is a fundamental utility. And when that utility goes offline, all the investment, all the infrastructure, and all the hope you pour into a community simply burns away. What good is a thriving downtown district if the walk back to your car means risking your life? It brings us to the cities where the violence is not a side effect of poverty or a symptom of political failure, but the main feature of the urban landscape. These are the places where the sheer brutality of violent property crime is so overwhelming that life is reduced to the constant calculation of risk. Number 4. Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. You might be looking at this name and thinking of beautiful South African landscapes, history, and a vibrant culture. But the truth of Pietermaritzburg is found in the numbers that define the daily terror of its residents. It consistently ranks as one of the most crime-ridden cities on the Global Crime Index, not for petty theft, but for hyper-violent property crime. The danger here is the utter collapse of the distinction between criminal and civilian life, a collapse so profound that the state is entirely absent from the personal security equation. The police force is overstretched, under-resourced, and often seen as complicit or ineffective. This failure has forced residents into a desperate and expensive security arms race. If you move here, your housing budget is immediately secondary to your security budget. We're talking about high-voltage electric fences, panic buttons wired to private armed response teams, reinforced steel gates, and high-definition CCTV systems that you, the homeowner, are entirely responsible for maintaining. Your property becomes a fortress, and life is lived within its walls. The hidden cost of living here is astronomical insurance premiums, if you can even find a company willing to fully insure your assets, and the monthly retainer for a private security detail that is often better equipped and faster to respond than the actual police. You can't leave because, like Memphis, the property you buy to secure your future instantly becomes an albatross. The hyperviolence creates a massive deterrent for qualified buyers. The market is depressed, the sales cycle is long, and the cost of maintaining the fortress, the electric bills for the fence, the retainer for the guards, eats into your equity every single month. Peter Maritzburg hold you hostage through the constant, exhausting expenditure required just to survive another night, locking you into a financial black hole. When your monthly security bill rivals your mortgage payment, your home has stopped being an asset and started being a liability. The trauma of the violence is layered on top of the financial ruin. Would you commit to a mortgage in a city where your safety is a subscription service that gets more expensive every year? Number 3. Duran, Ecuador. The story of Duran is terrifying because it's not a decades-long collapse, it's an explosive, sudden ignition. Until very recently, this city, a suburb of Guayaquil, was considered a manageable, if slightly rough, industrial center. Then, the global drug trade shifted its focus to Ecuador's ports, and the city became ground zero for a cartel turf war. The change was immediate, brutal, and stunning in its scale. Duran's homicide rate has soared, reaching rates as high as 148 per 100,000 residents, an unheard-of level of violence for a city that wasn't already synonymous with instability. This is what it looks like when organized crime is suddenly given free rein and has no need for subtlety. We're taught so effective. People who moved here just 5 years ago, seeking stability and low costs, found themselves trapped in a city that transformed into a war zone overnight. You can't leave because the infrastructure of escape is now part of the danger. The roads are controlled by military checkpoints and gang scouts. Travel to the airport is a calculated risk of kidnapping or robbery. The value of your property, your greatest asset, has plummeted to near zero, making a sale impossible. You are locked in by the velocity of the collapse. Your financial planning and long-term residency were based on a stable country, and that foundation was ripped out from under you in a matter of months. You are not only dealing with fear but also the shock of betrayal by reality itself. The city is a perfect example of how globalization, crime, and the failure to secure borders can turn a peaceful suburb into an unlivable cage. Number 2. Caracas, Venezuela. You hear about Venezuela and you hear about hyperinflation, about the economic tragedy of a country that sits on massive oil reserves but can't feed its people. But the housing danger in Caracas is far more acute and terrifying than simply the cost of bread. Caracas stands as the definitive example of total social and political breakdown. The entire nation is a hostage situation, and the city is the central stronghold. The danger is that the rules of society, private property, law enforcement, personal freedom, have been completely erased and replaced by a chaotic system of survival. The homicide rate is massive, but the real fear is the epidemic of express kidnappings, where victims are snatched off the street and held for a few hours while their accounts are drained. You can't leave because your currency is worthless, your assets are illiquid, and the state itself is not a protector but an active predator. If you manage to buy property during the short window of economic sanity, that property is now an object of risk. It can be seized by the state on a whim, or simply invaded by squatters who know the police will never intervene. The police, the military, and the state security forces are not protectors. They are often the most dangerous criminal element, operating checkpoints and shaking down citizens for bribes. Your largest asset is a legal fiction. To leave, you need foreign currency, which is nearly impossible to obtain, and you must sacrifice all your local assets, knowing that they will be worthless to you once you cross the border. The city holds you captive through a total financial and legal void. Even if you manage to physically leave, your entire life's work, your equity, and your history remain trapped behind. The city is a living monument to the fact that money is only worth the paper it's printed on if the system that enforces its value is still running. When the system fails, you are left with nothing but cement and dirt. The financial collapse here is directly coupled with the physical threat, creating a double bind that makes escape nearly impossible for anyone without external help. This isn't just a place where crime is high, it's a place where the social contract itself has been officially repealed. The sheer desperation, coupled with the systemic violence, creates a nightmare scenario that few people in the developed world can truly comprehend. It's a tragedy that unfolds minute by minute, day by day, and its residents are locked into it not by walls, but by economics. The financial collapse here is directly coupled with the physical threat, creating a double bind that makes escape nearly impossible for anyone without external help. It is a tragedy that unfolds minute by minute, day by day, and its residents are locked into it not by walls, but by economics. But all of these cities, in their own terrifying ways, whether through hyperviolence, systemic extortion, or political collapse, are unified by one chilling principle: the failure of the state to maintain a monopoly on force and legitimacy. They are places where the cost of a mortgage or the price of groceries is determined not by a central bank or a local council, but by the person with the most immediate and efficient access to violence. They are places of profound and total capture. This brings us to the final city on our list, number 1. This is the place where the war is not a metaphor. It is the literal, day-to-day reality, and the terrifying truth is that it is the only city on this list where leaving is arguably more dangerous than the already unimaginable prospect of staying. Number 1. Colima, Mexico. You may not have heard of Colima, but the cartels have. Colima, the capital of a small, strategic state on Mexico's Pacific coast, is ground zero for a hyper-concentrated turf war between some of the most powerful criminal organizations on Earth. Its proximity to the crucial Manzanillo port means that Colima is the gateway for massive amounts of chemical precursors and drugs, making control of this city absolutely non-negotiable for the cartels. The result: Colima has been reported to have a homicide rate soaring as high as 181.94 per 100,000 residents, a number so high it is difficult to process. This isn't just a crime problem, it is a war economy. The danger is not that you're caught in the crossfire, though that happens daily. It is that in Colima, the cartel is the sole sovereign power. They control the police, they control the local politicians, and most frighteningly, they control the exit points. To leave Colima, you must travel through territories controlled by competing, ruthless factions. You are at the mercy of checkpoints run not by the state, but by men with high-powered rifles who view anyone trying to escape as either a rival, a deserter, or a valuable commodity to be ransomed. The local population is trapped in a colossal, tragic cage. The true terror of Colima is the impossibility of safe movement. If you own a home, it's worthless on the market because no buyer, no matter how desperate, will willingly move into this level of violence. If you try to quietly sell, you become an immediate person of interest to the cartels, who will assume you are leaving with cash that is rightfully theirs. The city holds you captive by sheer force of arms, turning every road out, every airport, and every bus station into a potential ambush site. You cannot simply walk away from a life you've built. You must fight your way out, and the odds are stacked so heavily against you that it renders escape nearly impossible for the average, working person. The final truth of Colima is the total nullification of personal agency. Your freedom, your assets, and your very life belong to forces beyond the law. You've just taken a hard road trip through 7 cities where the danger is not a headline, it's the structural reality. But the most important takeaway from this entire terrifying list is not that these places exist. It's the contrast they provide. Because while we, in the developed world, often look at cities like Colima and Caracas as the pinnacle of human failure, their dangers are overt: a bullet, a kidnapping, a sudden seizure of property. They are terrifying because they are immediate and physical. But what if the most insidious, the most truly dangerous cities, are the ones where the dangers are covert? Where the risk isn't measured in homicide rates but in equity erosion? Where you can't leave alive not because of a cartel roadblock, but because your home is worth 40% less than when you bought it 6 months ago, and your mortgage is now a financial coffin. The kind of danger that your competitor so accurately reported in the seemingly stable housing markets of places like Nevada. This is the contrast framing that gives our analysis the necessary depth, the kind of insight that sets us apart. Consider the danger of North Las Vegas, a city we know was pitched as the practical alternative to Central Las Vegas. The initial promise was space, newer homes, and easy access to jobs. That was the glossy brochure. But what your competitor exposed was the hidden, systemic danger. The warehousing and logistics jobs that fueled the building wave were suddenly cut due to automation and consolidation. The collapse wasn't triggered by a gang war, but by a spreadsheet and a robot. The result, however, is a market where median prices tumbled, not because of a political coup, but because the economic foundation was built on sand. That is a covert danger. The homeowners in North Las Vegas, who bought at the peak with minimal down payments, are now facing rising delinquency filings. They are trapped by a financial metric, negative equity, just as surely as the residents of Colima are trapped by a lack of safe passage. They can't leave because they cannot sell without taking a devastating loss, and they cannot afford to hold because the cost of living, the rigid HOA fees, the insurance, the rising utilities, keeps climbing. This is the central theme we must understand. Danger has 2 faces. The brutal, visible danger of the unstable world, and the silent, systemic danger of the developed world. Think about Sparks, Nevada. The city was marketed as the quiet counterpart to Reno, slightly more affordable, family-focused. The truth, the danger revealed, was the overbuilding overhang. Builders developed entire neighborhoods based on the fantasy that demand from high-cost regions would never fade. When mortgage rates climbed and tech demand cooled, that fantasy died. Now, streets feature skeletons of construction sites, unfinished homes, and unsold inventory. The danger here is not a kidnapping, but stagnant equity. You can't leave because your asset, the house, has become illiquid. It is a slow, quiet suffocation of your wealth and your mobility. The HOA rules, which were supposed to bring stability, instead enforce a stressful conformity, issuing fines for minor aesthetic issues even as your property value plummets. It's an enforcement of perfection in a situation of total financial imperfection. This subtle, suffocating pressure is what makes the analysis so valuable and why people crave this straight talk. This subtle, suffocating pressure is what makes the analysis so valuable and why people crave this straight talk. The covert danger of financial collapse is insidious precisely because it hides behind the illusion of stability, behind manicured lawns and master-planned community gates. It forces us to ask, what is the most fragile foundation a modern city can be built upon? The answer often lies in a single, volatile industry. Consider Laughlin, Nevada. You drift in along the Colorado River and see the neon of casinos. The city's entire housing market, its entire livelihood, is deeply tied to that tourism and casino economy. The collapse here wasn't a sudden shock, but a gradual, terminal decline. Resorts downsized, properties shut doors, and jobs in hospitality and service vanished. For homeowners, especially those whose loans were secured by hospitality paychecks, the foundation of their life dissolved. The danger here is the fragility of the mono-economy. You can't leave because the job market that brought you there is gone, and the depressed housing market won't allow you to liquidate your asset. But there is a second, climate-based trap. Insurance costs have shot up due to obvious climate and erosion risks along the Colorado River. Sellers now face the double hit of lower demand and rising operating costs, a financial pincer movement that guarantees property loss. This mirrors the situation in Elko, Nevada, where the economy was built entirely on mining money. Gold and minerals kept the town afloat, pushing home prices up. Then, reduced global demand and, crucially, automation kicked in. Major employers scaled back, relying more on machines than people. The high-paying jobs vanished, the bidding wars evaporated, and the market fell straight through the floor. For the homeowner, the danger is that your largest investment is tied to a single, easily automated industry. You can't leave because your town's economic engine has been replaced by robotics, making your property worthless to the next generation of potential buyers. The hidden costs here, rising wildfire insurance, aging infrastructure, and shrinking public services, only tighten the financial screws. Then we move to the high-end, master-planned nightmares, the places that were sold as the safe bets for the wealthy and the retirees. Take Summerlin and Henderson. These areas epitomize the boom, promising stability, palm-lined boulevards, and gleaming plazas. The danger here is not poverty or crime, but debt and regulatory capture by the HOA. The median home prices rolled over from their peak, leaving recent buyers staring at high mortgage balances and shrinking equity. But the true trap is the escalating cost stack, association dues, master plan fees, extreme desert power bills, and rising insurance, all layered on top of the already large mortgage. Many buyers did not factor in the reality of desert living and the relentless demands of the HOA structure. You can't leave because the cost of carrying the house, the monthly financial outlay, eats up your income, and the resale value is determined by an increasingly cautious pool of buyers who see the financial trap for what it is. When the HOA hits you with a surprise four-figure special assessment for common area repairs, that bill is not a danger in the sense of a gunpoint robbery, but it is a massive, immediate threat to your financial solvency and your ability to plan or save for a move. Finally, consider the two perfect storms, Fernley and Las Vegas itself. Fernley was supposed to be the budget-friendly cousin to Reno, but it became the warning label for the entire state. The collapse was multifaceted: too many new homes, a shrunken local job base, manufacturing logistics cuts, and then the massive insurance shock when updated flood maps pushed large parts of the city into high-risk categories. Premiums tripled. The covert danger here is the state's inability to manage climate and construction risk. You can't leave because the combination of a shifting foundation, due to shoddy 2021 construction, and a crippling insurance bill means the market price is an illusion, the true cost of ownership is unbearable. And then there is Las Vegas, the ultimate spectacle. The city where the housing market flipped after a frenzy of investor buying, remote worker speculation, and short-term rental madness. The danger here is peak oversupply and inventory explosion. Median prices have fallen by more than half from their 2022 peak. Investors who bought multiple properties are now trapped, trying to unload their holdings without signaling panic. You can't leave because inventory has exploded, days on market have reached levels not seen since the last crisis, and your largest asset is now illiquid debt. The rising costs, water scarcity issues, extreme heat power bills that feel like a second car payment, and the infamous HOA strictures, form the final layer of the financial cage. The 7 cities we first examined, Colima, Caracas, Duran, show us the terrifying, visceral threat to life and limb. The Nevada cities, Las Vegas, Sparks, Elko, and Henderson, show us the modern, covert threat to mobility and wealth. Both are forms of captivity. One uses bullets, the other uses debt and illiquid equity. But the result is the same. The person who bought into the dream is trapped, their largest investment now a millstone around their neck, preventing them from seeking safety, opportunity, or a new start. The question for every prospective homeowner is not just, is this neighborhood safe? But, more importantly, what is the hidden structural flaw that will prevent me from leaving when the local economy inevitably collapses? The question for every prospective homeowner is not just, is this neighborhood safe? But, more importantly, what is the hidden structural flaw that will prevent me from leaving when the local economy inevitably collapses? We have seen the 2 faces of danger, the terror of the physical cage and the suffocation of the financial one. A discount price does not help if your equity keeps sliding and your costs keep climbing. This is not about scaring you away from making an investment. It is about demanding the full truth before you sign away the next 3 decades of your life. Knowledge is the only key that unlocks the financial cage. Would you now commit to a 30-year decision based solely on a sales brochure? Tell us your story in the comments. Subscribe to Discover the Nation so you never mistake hype for hope.